Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to do something a little bit different. You see, I've had access to Chaos Gate Demon Hunters for a little bit of time now, and during that time I've been able to play through it and just get some experience with the game in general. So what I wanted to do today is do a review, as the embargoes are now over and the game releases tomorrow. Yes, Chaos Gate Demon Hunters releases on May the 5th. So what I want to do is a review, but this game is quite story heavy, so I'm going to try things a little bit different. I don't want to spoil anything relating to the story. In fact, I want to focus mostly on the gameplay features itself. This is so, well, I don't ruin any story elements for you guys. I will touch upon it briefly and talk about that anyway, because at the end of the day, it still needs to fall in the section of the review. And obviously certain things in the campaign too relate to the story, so they will lightly be touched upon, but the idea is to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, so if you decide to purchase the game, well, it doesn't get ruined for you, and you're just able to see things with fresh eyes. Now, with that being said, I have been provided a key for free by the publishers, and as you may have seen earlier on this channel, I was involved in some events that allowed me to check out the game earlier, but this is not affecting my review whatsoever. So with all that being said, let's just jump right in. We're going to go in through everything. We're going to start a fresh campaign, and I'm going to give you my thoughts regarding Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Demon Hunters. Alright, so we're going to talk about the tutorial first, and yes, I know a lot of people do skip it. However, when it comes to Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, if you want the full story, you're going to have to play the tutorial. Don't worry, it's actually kind of short, as it does give you some story elements which links up to the beginning of your campaign. Those aren't going to be spoiled here, don't worry, but it's just good for you guys to know. Anyways, the tutorial does exactly what you think. It helps you learn the battle stuff. So everything involving turns, movement, doing special abilities, fighting in general, it's not that hard to learn. In fact, you are more than able to learn blind. If you're used to games like, say, for example, XCOM, Mordheim, anything like that, you're already good to go. But as the game does have its own stuff, like, for example, using psychic abilities with your Grey Knights, because obviously that's a big thing with Grey Knights, or generally how destructible environments work, like, for example, throwing pillars on your enemy, destroying bridges, and so on. I mean, it's simple enough to learn, but it's more focused on how exactly you can use it, which does make some missions a lot easier for you as you get into your campaign and you start fighting generic missions and so on. Sometimes just destroying a bridge or breaking a pillar so it can land on a number of enemies can be very useful. So I would say just playing through it, even if you're just not interested in the story elements, would be useful for you. Now, the tutorial itself isn't very long. I'd say around 10 minutes, depending on how quick you blast through it, as it's pretty easy in general. And I would say that it doesn't teach you everything, which is a bit strange. It's more of the case that it gives you the bare minimum and then you actually learn as you go ahead, which, if I can be very honest, I kind of like. I like going in blind with a lot of games. That's more of a personal thing, but we're all aware that this style of gameplay is not new, so it just needs the very bare minimum of hand-holding and then let you go off to do your own thing, which I think is a good thing. I know some people aren't going to like that, but in general, yeah, you know, we're big boys now. We can play and learn as we go. Again, like I've said, if you've played games like XCOM and so on, you won't need it, but do play it for the storyline because it's just a little bit of information that you do need when you start your campaign. That's pretty much it. Don't worry about the animation that you've just seen, it was just kind of cool. It's got nothing to do with your story, and you're going to see that animation a lot, to the point that it becomes a little bit tedious. I don't know, it just happens so often that you just you get kind of bored with it. So as you start your campaign, you will see that we are able to see our ship. Everything else is pretty much grayed out, because technically there's a first mission which kind of acts as a kind of easy battle to continue a tutorial, but it's not really the tutorial, as this is still part of your campaign, but it's the generic easy mode first mission just to get you used to the game after the tutorial, just in case you might need to go back to relearn and stuff. but it's pretty simple, so you won't have too many issues. So the first mission is very simple. Kill all enemies, and you're going to see a few different mission types, so don't get worried. It's not just all kill all enemies. There will be cases where you'll need to go for a bloom spawn, fighting a boss, or going for specific enemies who might have something that you need. It's a little bit varied, not too varied, but enough that you won't feel like you're doing the same thing over and over, I'd say. Or at least that's how I've been feeling. In general, I like the missions. They can get a little bit repetitive, but it depends on how much you're playing in a go. If you're doing massive sessions, it might feel a bit samey, but the maps are quite varied. Game maps themselves can be quite large depending on which ones that you're actually at, and it allows for quite a lot of movement. So matches do vary in terms of length. I've had some last about 4 or 5 minutes, but others have lasted 15-20. Obviously, it also depends on what difficulty you're going for and how quick your pace is, but generally, I would say I was going at a pretty good pace. You do need to slow down if you need to re-strategize and so on, which is a big thing here. You can't just go blind, because anything that you can do, like say, for example, overwatching, throwing grenades and all that, well, the enemy can do the same, and they'll try to more or less think ahead. Those who know me from my channel know that I can be a bit of a brute, so I charge in, try and do as much damage as possible. Here, maybe it doesn't work so well, because the AI will go around, the AI will do a lot of damage, and you've got a squad of 4, you don't have an army. You will be outnumbered by a large variety of different enemies. You'll start to see more as you progress. Early on, you'll mostly be dealing with poxwalkers, cultists, and just a few Chaos Space Marines, but eventually more and more enemies will appear. Each of these enemies do various different things, so they can eventually overwhelm you with different types of firepower, or just strength in general. As a quick note in discussion of the maps, I like the maps. They're quite varied, they've got different styles, you've got loads of different areas which have loads of vantage points. I'd say that, yeah, it's probably one of the best features about it. I know a lot of other games in this style pretty much just copy-paste the same map over and over and over and over again, which gets incredibly boring. But so far, pretty much every map I've been to just feels a lot different and plays a lot differently, because on how terrain is positioned, where you can actually go, where you can climb from. Yeah, your Space Marines can climb, depending if they're wearing Terminator armor or not. But I'd say that they're quite nice, and there's quite a decent amount of them. I don't know exactly how many maps there are, but it definitely feels that you won't get bored aesthetically. Early on, you'll be introduced to mechanics that weren't in the tutorial, and literally straight after first mission, you've got promotions, which is level up. So yeah, you know, your characters can level up, and you're gonna have to make them more powerful, especially as your enemies get stronger and harder. You want to be able to fight back. So what you have access to is a ability section here, which can get you some certain abilities. It can boost up your already available abilities, and yeah, it works out quite well. The only problem is that you kind of forget, because you can't see the character, well, you can see the character details on the side, but you can't see what they're using, so you might have to go back. It's a bit tedious just to see, it's like, okay, I'm building this guy as a melee build, so I want to go with melee abilities, or I'm going with range. It's a little bit frustrating, at least that's in my opinion, but after a while you'll start to get used to it, or at least I did, and it becomes a bit more easier to just go through. Okay, so after that mission, now we get to our main hub, which is pretty much everything that we'll be doing when we're not in battles is here, where we can get upgrades, we can recruit units, we can talk to the other characters so we can get some information, some dialogue. This is the hub that you, the player, will decide where everything pretty much plays out, and generally it's not too hard to go through. You'll have the game kind of pushing you towards some things. There's not a lot of hand-holding, I must say, and it is important to get dialogue sorted. We're going to talk about dialogue in just a second, but in general, very easy to learn and nothing too difficult. So this could be counted as a minor spoiler section, but not really. I'm going to be introducing you to the characters that you're going to be dealing with mostly, and this is Brother Ector. This is an Elder Grey Knight, and I'm not going to give you any information regarding anything backstory-wise and all that. It's just, it is important to speak to him. He's in the Barracks section, well, the Strategium, and he'll give you context regarding a few things as your story progresses.
She already makes demands on a ship badly in need of restitution.
The reason why I wanted to show you this is because, as you can see, dialogue is a bit weird. If you click on an option, he'll give you some written section there and only say a little bit of what the dialogue is supposed to be, which I find kind of annoying. Like, the voice acting in-game is actually pretty good, depending on certain sections and all that, but it gets a little frustrating when you can see that he's saying a big paragraph, but he only says one sentence. It's nothing game-breaking, don't get me wrong, but it just gets a little bit annoying. In the Manufactorium, you can see that we can do some repairs. There's basically just focusing around our ship, its ship status and all that, but what you can also see is there is another character here. This is another major character. This is the Tech Priest, and I do have a bit of an issue with this too, mostly because they gave this Tech Priest a bit of a personality, and he talks back sometimes and so on. I understand that they're supposed to, you know, focus on keeping the ship safe, but I don't know, it just feels a little bit out of character.
I will not have the edict put at risk, even for an Inquisitor.
This is something, it's just some quirky dialogue, but it's like talking back to an Inquisitor and all that. It's just a bit strange. I don't know, but it's not too bad. It's something that you won't notice too much, barring certain cutscenes, but this is important for lore fans to know. And finally, we have the Libris Malleus, which is where you do your research for stuff, and this is where we talk to Vakir, who is the Inquisitor who will be accompanying you through your journey.
My attention, Knight. This one appears to be some kind of host. An object is nestled within. It is different from what I've seen with these puppets in the past.
So, without going into any spoilers, I just feel like she's a bit hot-headed, maybe a bit too young for an Inquisitor. Like, you won't notice it early on, but you will notice it in certain cutscenes, and it just gets a bit like there's forced type of positioning here. Like, she's really trying to assert her dominance, and it just feels a bit annoying in most cases. She's an interesting character overall, but yeah, it's just a little bit annoying. So this is the star map. This is how you progress through your campaign, how you pick missions, how you pretty much do a lot of your stuff in-game. And as you can see, you're in a sector at the moment, there's loads of different planets, and you will eventually have to travel through them. Get used to this specific type of map, because you're going to have to see it for a while, and that's not a bad thing in general, as you get to pick different missions that pop up. We'll get to that in a little bit later, and there's definitely variety, so you can go through that without too much of an issue. Then later on, we do have the ship, so we can just see our ship and what planet it's currently at, so you will get background changes and all that. This is just nice. It's nice to see. It's nice to get a nice look of some scenery, essentially. Your barracks in the Strategium is how you not only recruit extra Grey Knights, but you can also start to, well, play around and just allow yourself to edit your squads, edit your characters. And this is a great thing. This is something that I highly praise because it really brings that Warhammer feel. Not only will you be just changing some basic stuff around, but you know, it's like kit bashing, right? It's something that you can change around your armor, you can change around your weapons, you can change around all your different things, and obviously that's expected from these types of games. You want to be able to change your equipment, you want to be able to have different things that do different things. It's all kind of codex compliant, so if you've played Grey Knights before, or well, pretty much any Space Marine, or well, any faction in Warhammer 40,000 tabletop, you already know how this is going to go. So, you know, different armaments will be used in different things, different situations, different types of attacks and all that. So you can tailor your loadouts to be exactly what you want and what you prefer. I myself have had a few interesting different types of loadouts, and it's more really up to you as a player. But yeah, this is great. Customability, especially for Warhammer games, I feel is extremely important. You know, I'm a big Warhammer fan. I've played Warhammer tabletop since like I was 4. So you want to get the familiarity from the tabletop here, which a lot of games do, but a grand majority really don't. I mean, even having some basic stuff like having some servo skulls as war gear, they show up and you've got them there, they'll show up in the battlefield, which is nice because I can like roleplay that I've got Voldemort's Guide to Warhammer with me, you know? So everything's pretty much here. You'll also be able to just check out your abilities and plan ahead in what you want, so you don't have to wait for the promotion screen. I think everything's done quite well. Generally, the customization just for this basic stuff, so just your abilities, your weapons, your war gear. It's all great. I must say, like, I really enjoyed this. There are certain points where I just spent an ungodly amount of time here throughout my own personal campaign, just so I could tailor my force to be exactly how I wanted it. Okay, so next we do have character customization too, which I think is really, really good because it gives you that tabletop feel once again. You can change their name, but not their surname. You can change their crest, their skin color, their hair color, head options, pretty much details for anything regarding the armor, and it kind of gives you that feeling of when you buy a new box of Warhammer and you're like, well, I don't want to follow the book, I don't want to follow the instructions, I just want to go around and do my own thing, which I think is really, really important. This is well, Warhammer. This is something that Warhammer is known for. It's a little bit of kit bash elements. Your character will still be the same class that they were, but you can tailor them to look exactly how you want. You can even start going, well, I'm going to make them look like the squad that I've painted up, which I know, yes, is not a really important thing for those who don't play tabletop, but for those that do, at least in my opinion, or at least how I've been seeing this, it's just nice because it makes you feel like your squad is your squad, and it's cool. Yes, some other games do this, but it's so different when you play a Warhammer game and you get this, because obviously you do get attached to your armies, you do get attached to your squads, but it's more the case of just bringing that Warhammer element there. A big way to get more campaign bonuses and generally just make your campaign a little bit easier by doing upgrades and so on is through the Manufactorum. You'll go to ship status and there you'll be able to select different upgrades. There are prerequisites for some of them, but anything like a barracks upgrade to be able to get more troops recruited, or in general just different stuff like recovery time and all that, you're going to have to go through here. It's going to cost time and resources. So servitors are your big thing here, and you can run out of servitors, so you're going to have to do missions to be able to get more, and eventually you can get more generally. And it's also increasing your gun battery, your ship speed. There's so much that needs to get done through here that you will find yourself through these locations. Don't do what I did at the very beginning where, yeah, I completely ignored it for a while. Yeah, it's not going to help you if you ignore it, trust me. Then in the Libris Malleus, we do have our research menu, and, well, that's exactly what you expect it to be. So you're able to do some research. Here is where you get more benefits. At the beginning, very easy. You don't really need anything else, just time. Other times you will need certain resources which come from certain bloom stuff. And this is a resource that's up to you to get, so you have to be careful, you have to keep your eye out. It's going to take a while because some of these tech can take a while to get, like 24 in-game days isn't a long time depending on how you actually progress through the game. But as you can see, the tree itself is fairly large. Well, there's two different trees. The most important thing I'd say is keep an eye on the missions themselves to make sure that they have the resources, because sometimes you can miss them out. See, I told you you'd see that animation a lot. Anyways, as you progress time, you can either advance time whilst you're being stationary at a planet, or you can decide to move to different locations. That will also advance the time. So it depends on what you want to do. You can patrol there and all that. I would suggest staying in a central location though. That's more of a hot tip because missions will start spawning and time is a massive factor. Yeah, like this game does have a few time things, especially when missions can eventually expire and all that, and we'll get to that in just a second, which is right now. So you can see at certain points, missions will spawn. This is balloon spawn detected, and you can see 3 missions have now appeared. This is something that you'll need to focus around because you're going to try to keep the overall corruption levels in the sector as low as possible. So you will need to keep an eye out on these missions, and as you start going out, you can see there's 3 different ones. They've got bars atop them, and how it works is that the time it takes to get there, that's when it starts getting less. So the green bar is the overall health, the red is how it's going to start dwindling. It's something that you need to keep an eye on, and the missions do vary depending on where you go. It's more the case of how much time you actually have to get there, where you'll be able to get some resources, defeat the enemies in that area. It really is very time dependent. I can't stress this enough because the other missions will expire. Early on, it will be a common case. Later on, you'll start getting more upgrades which will make your ship faster, so it won't be too much of an issue, and you'll be able to more or less get as many as possible should they start spawning too many. And yeah, so it's the basic thing. You arrive, you get given the mission briefing. Sometimes it's kill all enemies, sometimes it's something else. Very early on, you'll mostly be just killing enemies because, you know, it's just to get you used to the game. But from that, everything is as you expect. You can then decide, well, I want to change my loadout, or I want to change some knights around. But yeah, just go in, do your damage, and do your thing. This is what Grey Knights are built to do. Already you'll be able to see quite a few differences. This is another battle map, and what you can see obviously is there's more walls, there's more big terrain. Like I said, it's all kind of varied, and it's a good thing. Something I always get worried with these types of games is monotony, especially with scenery, because gameplay will always remain the same, but scenery can change. If it doesn't, then you will get bored of the game quite quickly. But yeah, having such different varied areas, especially as it gets more corrupted and all that, you've got a lot to see, you've got a lot to play with, and yeah, it allows you to change up your tactics, make use of high vantage points, destructible terrain, all that different stuff. It's a good thing, it's generally a good thing. And as you progress, like I said, you'll start to see more enemies, so things won't get stale quickly. Something important to note here is that your units can get wounded, and they will vary. So here we've got some light wounds, which means that, you know, in a few days he'll be back up to normal. When it comes to certain wounds, they can take a lot longer, they can even die, so it's important that you use your characters, your squad, with a bit of synergy. Make them do some teamwork, essentially. While it is possible to do, well, just go gung-ho and just smash your way through different locations, it might not be the best way to go, especially as you start dealing with more and more enemies that can quickly overwhelm you and pretty much just kill your characters. Again, it's up to how you decide to play or not, but I've realized that keeping your squad together, or at least in groups of 2, is likely the best way to go. Okay, we're going to talk about something story-wise, but it's really more of a minor spoiler because this is more how it's going to affect you in campaign. Every now and then you'll have to come up with some dialogue stuff, and yeah, it's still got the same dialogue issues. It's more of the case of you have no context on certain things, which is a bit annoying. Let me just explain. Sometimes you're going to be given some options, like for example here, which is agree with the Inquisitor, we should return to Titan, or discuss the Bloom Seed. And how it works is that you will need to make a decision. Yeah, this is how dialogue normally works. But you can get benefits or negatives, sometimes both, regarding what you pick. And seeing as it doesn't really tell you in advance, it does become a bit of an annoyance because you're basically relying on making the right decision without any context. This is something that you get in loads of games, like for example, you know, like Fallout 4 and stuff like that. Different style of game, but you know what I mean, where you don't know what could happen. And this is fine for a lot of players. It's kind of more RPG aspect, but a lot of players do prefer at least knowing what you can get. So you'd have the options outlined saying, okay, if I pick this, then I'll get this as a bonus, but this is a negative and all that. So I'm a bit indifferent to this. Personally, I find it a bit annoying because it can screw you over in certain bits. Here I've gotten a good bonus, which is increased research speed for 4 days, which is great, but if I would have gotten a negative for something else, it might have hindered me for a little bit, so you get what I mean here. Let's talk about Requisition. So Requisition is another resource, and you do have a few, so it might be a bit overwhelming at first, but you'll get used to it. And you can use Requisition for a lot of things. For example, here, you can use it for the Armory of Titan, and that allows you to be able to, you know, get some stuff directly from command, essentially. This is your big world. I'm trying to keep it as streamlined as possible for people who aren't really used to 40k lore and all that. But you can also use Requisition for other stuff like recruiting a knight, and you can only do that around once a day, and it just kind of randomizes what you get. So you don't even pick the class and all that. There are other ways to get knights, and this is through pop-ups that you'll see as you progress through your campaign. I don't want to ruin that type of stuff because some of it can be related to story, but yeah, it's a bit RNG focused, so if you need an apothecary, sometimes you might not be able to get an apothecary. Now, it's fine. You don't have to recruit them. I know it looks like that, but you can just click back. It's a bit of a weird thing where the back button is for multiple things. It gets a little bit finicky, and it can get a little bit confusing. But generally, you're fine, and don't you worry. Sometimes escape works too, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not too sure if that's just because I've got an early build. They've got the release build now, I believe, but this was at a time when I was recording earlier, obviously. So as you can see at this point, we've had a little bit of a time skip, and now we've got new missions. This starts giving us more stuff, like say, for example, eliminate all the seed carriers. Seed carriers are what you're looking for when you want, seeds. And there's a few more things that you can do. You have to start going around to locations and start planning ahead. At this point, I've had a upgrade which allows me to slow down certain areas of the sector from the corruption. So I can actually hit 2. They're also very, very close. It could be possible in the future to hit all 3. And it's just more of the case of planning ahead, which again is very important for these types of games. I know I've said this a few times, but it's important to stress that out. You need to think a bit when you're in the campaign map. And I think that's good because it gives you a feeling of, yeah, the corruption's rising and I need to stop it. I need the corruption not to get here. I need it to relax a little bit down here. I need to focus in these locations. Some of these missions will also have better incentives too. So these are known as Valorous Deeds. And what this does is it provides new factors to your match. As you can see here, kill 4 enemies with grenades. Now, if you achieve this, you'll get +2 Requisition, but if you don't do this, you'll get -1. So it makes the game a little bit harder as you have to do certain things. Admittedly, this is a very, very, very easy Valorous Deed, but then again, it's very early in the game. And it works out quite well because that means that you can make the game harder and take the risk for a reward. There are certain times, like for example, I had a mission which is do this mission without using grenades. And grenades are very, very strong, so you kind of want to always have grenades if possible. The Valorous Deeds themselves are not needed. You don't have to do them, though it will help you to get more Requisition and other bonuses. So it's something that you need to think about once again. Do I take this risk? Do I go in without using any grenades? Do I use my grenades? Do I focus on them? It's more on if you want to take the risk to get the reward, and if you want to risk potentially losing out on rewards and also already acquired Requisition. Again, completely up to you, but I like the system because it kind of makes it a bit more interesting, especially since some of the missions themselves can get a little samey, like I said, so this adds a bit more flavor. Alright, so I think I've explained the game enough, giving you what I like and what I don't like, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you some final thoughts regarding the game in general, because, yeah, this is a review after all, and again, give it a final number. So, Chaos Gate Demon Hunters is a very interesting take on a style of gameplay that we've seen already a lot. It's turn-based. I know a lot of people are kind of sick of turn-based, but I'd say that it's probably easier to make a Warhammer game as a turn-based game than anything else, mainly because that's what the main setting is, with the whole tabletop aspect. I've seen a lot of fans saying that they don't really want more turn-based games, but I personally enjoy them, so I think it's perfectly fine. I think the game overall is very good. I've never heard of the developers Complex Games before, and I must say that my first impressions of them is quite good. This is generally a good game. I will admit that there are some cases where it does feel a bit repetitive, but then again, this is expected from this style of gameplay itself. But generally, yeah, gameplay is good. To the best of my knowledge, I've not really had any bugs. As far as I'm aware, I've played for a decent amount of time and really not seen anything game-breaking, no crashes to desktop. So that's promising, considering that many games being released around this period have not been great, let's just say. The battles themselves feel good, although there is a little bit of a finicky thing when it comes to special abilities and all that. It's a lot of going down to click confirm rather than just, double click. It gets a little bit slow paced because of that, because you're like double click and you expect it to move that way or do a specific thing, and sometimes it's just like you've got to click confirm, and it's just a little bit annoying, but nothing that would make me not want to play this game. Dialogue, I really do wish that they just did everything, because, they've got great voice actors. The voice actors are very, very good. The sound design in general is very good. The music is very good. It's more of the case of the voice acting only doing a little bit of a sentence. It reminds me of Fallout 4 with that, and that just kind of annoys me a little bit. Not getting the full dialogue type of thing. It's just a bit, I do have a little bit of an annoyance with certain things, like for example, the tech priest getting a bit snarky. It's like kind of adding personality to something that really shouldn't really have a personality. And the Inquisitor being a lot hot-headed, maybe it's because she's a bit young, but, you know, when you think of an Inquisitor, you think of someone fairly older and a bit more of a stick in the mud, more than someone who can't really control their own emotions type of thing. That being said, the other characters, it's perfectly fine. They sound good. They act alright. It's just, you know, don't add personality where it doesn't need to add personality. At least that's my opinion. Keep in mind that I've been in this hobby for a while, so I come in with certain expectations for certain things, and obviously my expectation is not what the vision that the developers have, so that's just more of a me thing. I'd say that the game in general is quite good. There is DLC potential. There is definitely DLC potential, and I would like it if they explored more on other Chaos Gods. I'll be very honest with you, I don't understand why developers, and this isn't just them, this is pretty much every developer that touches a Warhammer game, why they're so interested in Nurgle. Like, I get it, you know, it's cool, Nurgle's a fun god, and there's loads of different opportunities, but we've had so many games with a Nurgle focus that it just gets so boring. And, you know, we had the beginning, which has some bloodletters and all that, and you never know for the future, because at the end of the day, you know, this is a pretty solid product. I'm actually very surprised. I just wish that there would have been a focus on Tzeentch instead, you know, Thousand Suns and all that type of stuff. Obviously, they went with Death Guard because Death Guard are stupidly popular. You know, Death Guard and Nurgle, very popular. But again, I can't really fault the vision of the developers for this. It's more of a personal thing and kind of a lot of fatigue around Nurgle, because, you know, Vermintide and obviously Darktide soon is going to be Nurgle focused too, and I just really am sick of Nurgle. Maybe it's because of the past 2 years, like, real time, like, you know, our own world. But, yeah. Well, it's definitely something that could last and keep on going. Expansion packs, I guess, would probably be the best way to go. But let's not talk about the future, because it's more based on the now. I like the game. I think that's really interesting. It's really nice to see what you can do, especially with the customability. Like, I've got games, like, right, you can see right now, I've only gone like full melee here, no grenades too because of a Valorous Deed, so instead I've got a bunch of servo skulls which act as extra heals, which is quite useful, and it's quite interesting to see what you can do. Now, melee focus is always going to be a quite important thing, because that's how you pretty much get your hands on extra seeds and all that. But you can go pure guns if you want to. It's pretty much just up to you and what playstyle you prefer, and I think that's pretty good. In general, I'd say the game is great. The game is really good. If I'd have to give it a score, I'd have to say 8.5 out of 10. Because I've genuinely enjoyed myself. It's a very interesting thing. I thought I was going to come in like hating it, but yeah, it was actually quite good. For context, it was mostly because, well, you know, a lot of Warhammer games, how do I put this? They suffer from something called the curse of the Warhammer game, which is when a game gets released, or when a game gets shown off, it's more based on the gods flip a coin and it will decide if the game is good or sucks or not. And yeah, I was surprised. I was really surprised. I mean, I'm going to be streaming this later, and I've got special Twitch drops and all that, so you guys can get some free stuff, apparently. So if you want to see it more in depth, you're more than welcome to join. It's the same name as my channel, and it will be showcasing as much as possible. Keep in mind that that will be more prone to a few spoilers here and there. I will try to avoid them as much as possible, but there's only so many ways that you can do it without like skipping stuff for upgrades and all that. I'd say if you're interested in XCOM style games, this is a game that you're going to be wanting to play. If you like that style, you're going to love this. If you're interested in Warhammer games, this is going to be quite good for you, because the Grey Knights are cool. Grey Knights are very cool. Keep in mind that yes, they are Space Marines, but they've got their own flavor. It makes them quite unique. It's not like we're playing as, say, for example, Ultramarines. I would say that you don't need to know the lore too much to get into a game like this, though you do get told stuff here and there, and it provides you some context. Obviously, if you want to know more, you know, there are creators who are very good at lore stuff for 40k, such as Voldemort's Guide to Warhammer. He's a good friend of mine, so I would suggest checking him out, because he will give you more context if you want to know more about it. But generally, anything that happens in the game is explained in the game. This is something that needs to be done, and a lot of Warhammer games don't do that. So you go in there, and if you don't know the storyline, or if you don't know the plot, you don't know the lore, a lot of people do get confused. So is this a game I can see myself playing often? Yeah, it's something that I quite like. I like this style of game though. So it very much depends on your own personal preference. Could it be a bit better? Yeah, if they fix some things that just I find annoying, I think it would be a better score on my part. But generally, I do think that this game will be well received by the community. Let's just hope there's no day one patch that will break stuff. I do think that we have the final build. I'm not 100% too sure. But in general, if you like 40k, if you like XCOM, if you like those types of things, yeah, this is probably going to be the game for you. This is going to be something that you can play for a while. And the campaign itself is fairly long, at least from my experience. Now, I don't want to go too much detail into that because I don't want to spoil everything, but yeah, I think you're going to enjoy this. Like I said, if you want to get a more in-depth look before you decide to buy or something, I'll be streaming today. I've got Twitch drops enabled, so you can get some free stuff. Come by, check it out, see if this is something for you, because at the end of the day, if you're not used to this type of thing, and I think the majority of the viewers on my channel aren't, because most of you guys focus on Total War and all that, it's important to make an informed decision before buying, which is why I don't put pre-order links anymore, because I think this is very important. Anyways, I'm going to let the rest of the battle play off, because there's not a lot of time here. This battle was about, what, 15 minutes or so, which is pretty good, and it was pretty decent. I like melee builds. But with all that being said, have a nice day, guys, and let me know if you're going to be buying this game in the comments below. It'll be nice to see what people were thinking about this, what you think about the game, and yeah.
No match for the Emperor's chosen. Vengeance!
No! Don't give up now!
My wrath is restored, brother. Then!
Got them. Commander, I recommend you fortify until you can be extracted. We have some unpleasant company incoming.
Mercy in death. What is your will? Target acquired. Purge complete. I am weak.
God, grant me strength!
Terminated. More of the plague god's minions. Brothers, I have discovered the enemy!
Nice!
My blade is yours. As you will. Yes, Commander.
At once.
Seeking the tainted. Unleash me. We strive. Pure among impurity. They shall not pass.
Gods, watch over me! This way, out of sight.
Foe destroyed. Come back. I will hold them here. They shall not pass. Ready to fire. They shall not pass.
Cannot see us. They will not see me here. Gods, watch over me.
The Emperor protects! Terminated.
Fall, monster!
You have been judged. Death is our creed.
Teleport coordinates locked. Initiating sequence.